Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. Maxine's heels clicked against the tiled floor as she made her way behind the counter. She smoothed down her navy blue pencil skirt and adjusted her white blouse, a small smile playing on her lips as she remembered a time when such clothing felt like a distant dream. "Morning, boss," chirped a cheerful voice from the doorway. Maxine turned to see her assistant manager, Emma, bounding in with her usual enthusiasm. "Good morning, Emma. How are you feeling about today's staff meeting?" Emma's grin widened. "Excited. I can't wait to hear about the new location plans." As they began their morning routine, preparing for the day ahead, Maxine's mind wandered to the journey that had brought her to this point. 5 years ago, she had been living a life that felt like an ill-fitting suit, constantly uncomfortable in her own skin. Now, at 35, she stood tall and confident, the owner of a thriving business and finally comfortable in her own body. The staff began to filter in, each greeting Maxine with warm smiles and respectful nods. She had worked hard to create an inclusive environment, one where everyone felt valued and supported. It was the kind of workplace she had always dreamed of, back when she was still struggling to find her place in the world. As the morning rush began, Maxine pitched in alongside her employees, effortlessly keeping up with the flurry of orders. Her long chestnut hair was pulled back into a neat bun, revealing the delicate silver earrings that had been a gift from her mother on the first anniversary of her transition. "Grande soy latte for Jen," Maxine called out, handing the steaming cup to a regular customer with a warm smile. Jen took the cup gratefully. "Thanks, Maxine. By the way, I wanted to tell you how much I appreciate what you've been doing with the women's shelter downtown. My sister just got out of a tough situation, and the resources you've provided have been a lifesaver." Maxine's heart swelled with pride. "I'm so glad to hear that, Jen. Please let your sister know that if she needs anything else, she can always reach out to us." As Jen left, Maxine felt a familiar sense of purpose wash over her. Using her success to help other women in need had become one of the most rewarding aspects of her life. She thought back to the countless nights she had spent volunteering at shelters, offering support and understanding to women who felt lost and alone. The morning rush finally began to slow, and Maxine retreated to her small office in the back of the shop. She sank into her chair, taking a moment to breathe before tackling the mountain of paperwork on her desk. Her eyes fell on a framed photo of herself from 5 years ago, standing nervously in front of her first coffee cart. The person in that photo looked so different from the woman she was now, not just physically, but in the way she carried herself. A soft knock on the door interrupted her reverie. "Come in," she called. Emma poked her head in. "Hey, Maxine, your mom's on line 1. She says it's about the wedding?" Maxine couldn't help but smile. Her mother's upcoming wedding had been a frequent topic of conversation lately. "Thanks, Emma. I'll take it in here." Picking up the phone, Maxine felt a rush of warmth. Her relationship with her mother had been strained for years, but her transition had brought them closer than ever before. "Hi, Mom. What's up?" "Maxine, honey." Her mother's excited voice came through the line. "I just wanted to double-check about your dress fitting next week. Are you still able to make it?" "Of course, Mom. I wouldn't miss it for the world. How are the other preparations coming along?" As her mother launched into a detailed account of flower arrangements and seating charts, Maxine leaned back in her chair, content. The fact that her mother wanted her not just at the wedding, but as a bridesmaid, meant more to her than she could express. After finishing the call, Maxine turned her attention to the staff meeting scheduled for that afternoon. She had big news to share. Plans for opening their 10th location were finally underway. As she reviewed her notes, she marveled at how far she had come. From a single cart to a thriving chain of coffee stands, each step had been a testament to her resilience and determination. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of customer interactions and management tasks. As lunchtime approached, Maxine's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Olivia, the woman she had been seeing for the past few months. "Hope your day is going well. Still on for dinner tonight?" X. Maxine felt a flutter in her stomach as she typed her reply. Dating as a trans woman had its challenges, but with Olivia, things felt different. There was an ease, an acceptance that Maxine had rarely experienced before. As she put her phone away, Maxine caught sight of her reflection in the office window. She took a moment to really look at herself. The subtle makeup enhancing her features, the confidence in her posture, the spark of happiness in her eyes. This was who she had always been meant to be. The afternoon staff meeting went even better than Maxine had hoped. The excitement about the new location was palpable, and she felt a surge of pride in the team she had built. These weren't just employees. They were a family supporting each other and working towards a common goal. After the meeting, Maxine took a moment to chat with each staff member individually. She made a point of checking in on their personal lives as well as their work performance. Maria was pregnant with her second child, and Maxine made a mental note to look into expanding their parental leave policy. Tom's partner had recently lost his job, and Maxine discreetly slipped him information about job openings at their supplier's warehouse. As the workday drew to a close, Maxine found herself reflecting on the myriad ways her life had changed. The physical changes from her transition were obvious, but it was the internal shifts that truly amazed her. The constant discomfort and anxiety that had plagued her for so long had given way to a sense of peace and self-assurance. She remembered the day she had finally gathered the courage to come out to her employees. The fear had been almost paralyzing, but their overwhelming support had brought her to tears. That day had marked a turning point, not just in her personal journey, but in her approach to business. She had vowed then to create a workplace where everyone felt safe to be their authentic selves. As she locked up the shop, Maxine's phone buzzed again. It was a message from the women's shelter, thanking her for the latest donation of coffee and pastries. She smiled, remembering the first time she had volunteered there, still early in her transition and unsure of how she would be received. The acceptance and sisterhood she had found there had been a balm to her soul. Maxine hailed a taxi, giving the driver the address of the restaurant where she was meeting Olivia. As the city lights blurred past the window, she thought about how different dating felt now. In the past, relationships had been fraught with anxiety and a constant fear of rejection. Now she approached them with an openness and vulnerability that would have terrified her former self. The taxi pulled up to a cozy Italian restaurant, and Maxine spotted Olivia waiting outside. Her heart skipped a beat at the sight of her girlfriend's warm smile. Olivia's curly red hair was swept up in a messy bun, and she wore a green dress that brought out the color of her eyes. "Hey, beautiful," Olivia greeted her with a kiss on the cheek. "How was your day?" As they settled into their table and ordered wine, Maxine found herself opening up about the emotional roller coaster of the day. She shared her excitement about the new coffee stand location, her nervousness about her mother's wedding, and her ongoing efforts to support the women's shelter. Olivia listened attentively, her hand resting comfortably on Maxine's. "You're amazing, you know that," she said softly. "The way you've built this life for yourself, the way you give back to others. I'm in awe of you, Maxine." Maxine felt a warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you," she said, squeezing Olivia's hand. "Sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed. 5 years ago, I never would have imagined I could be this happy, this comfortable in my own skin." As they enjoyed their meal, the conversation flowed easily. Olivia shared stories from her job as a high school English teacher, and they laughed over the latest antics of Olivia's cat, Mr. Darcy. Maxine found herself marveling at how natural it all felt. The romantic dinner, the easy intimacy, the simple joy of being seen and accepted for who she truly was. After dinner, they decided to take a walk through a nearby park. The night was warm and fairy lights twinkled in the trees. As they strolled hand in hand, Maxine's thoughts drifted to the future. For so long, she had been focused on survival, on becoming her true self. Now, for the first time, she allowed herself to dream bigger. "Penny for your thoughts?" Olivia asked, nudging her gently. Maxine smiled. "I was just thinking about the future. You know, I've been so focused on my transition and building the business, I haven't really let myself think too far ahead. But now, I'm starting to imagine what else might be possible." Olivia's eyes sparkled with interest. "Oh, like what?" "Well," Maxine said slowly, "I've been thinking about expanding the business in new ways. Maybe partnering with organizations that help trans youth or starting a mentorship program for women entrepreneurs. And I've been thinking about family, about whether I might want to be a mother someday." The words hung in the air between them, full of possibility. Olivia squeezed her hand. "Those all sound like beautiful dreams, Maxine. And for what it's worth, I think you'd be an amazing mother." As they continued their walk, Maxine felt a sense of excitement building within her. The future stretched out before her, full of potential and promise. She thought about all the trans youth out there, struggling as she once had, and imagined being able to show them that a happy, successful life was possible. The next morning, Maxine woke early, her mind buzzing with ideas. She made her way to the coffee stand, greeting the early morning staff with a bright smile. As she tied on her apron, she noticed a young woman hovering nervously by the counter, clutching a resume. "Can I help you?" Maxine asked warmly. The woman startled, then straightened her shoulders. "Yes, I saw that you were hiring. I was hoping to apply for a barista position." Maxine noticed the pride flag pin on the woman's jacket and the slight tremor in her voice. She remembered all too well the anxiety of job hunting early in her transition. "Of course," she said, her voice gentle. "Why don't you come into the office and we can chat?" As they talked, Maxine learned that the woman's name was Rachel, and she had recently begun her transition. She had lost her previous job when she came out and was struggling to find acceptance in the workplace. "Rachel," Maxine said, leaning forward, "I want you to know that if you join our team, you'll be respected and valued for who you are. We're like a family here, and we support each other." Tears welled up in Rachel's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea how much that means to me." As Rachel left with an application form and a complimentary latte, Maxine felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was why she had worked so hard to build her business, not just for personal success, but to create opportunities for others like her. The day passed in a whirlwind of activity. Maxine found herself sharing her ideas for expansion with Emma, who responded with enthusiasm and practical suggestions. They began to sketch out plans for a mentorship program, brainstorming ways to connect experienced entrepreneurs with women just starting out. In the afternoon, Maxine received a call from the women's shelter. They were organizing a fundraising gala and wanted to know if she would be willing to speak at the event. Without hesitation, Maxine agreed. As she hung up the phone, she realized how far she had come from the shy, insecure person she had once been. The thought of public speaking no longer filled her with dread, but with excitement at the opportunity to make a difference. As closing time approached, Maxine's phone buzzed with a message from her mother. "Just picked up your bridesmaid dress from the tailor. It's beautiful, honey. You're going to look stunning." Maxine felt a lump form in her throat. The journey to this point hadn't been easy. There had been painful arguments, periods of estrangement, and a lot of tears. But her mother had come around, had educated herself, had become Maxine's fiercest advocate. The dress, the wedding, her mother's pride. These were symbols of how far they had come together. After locking up the shop, Maxine decided to take a detour on her way home. She found herself standing outside the location of her very first coffee cart. The space was now occupied by a trendy boutique, but Maxine could still picture herself there, nervously serving her first customers, her hands shaking as she tried to operate the espresso machine. She smiled at the memory. That scared, uncertain person felt like a stranger now. Yet Maxine knew that without her, Without her courage, her determination, her willingness to take risks, she wouldn't be where she was today. As she turned to leave, Maxine caught sight of her reflection in the boutique window. She saw a confident, successful woman, her posture straight, her eyes bright with purpose. But more than that, she saw herself, truly, completely herself, for perhaps the first time. The next few weeks flew by in a blur of activity. Maxine threw herself into preparations for the new coffee stand location, worked on her speech for the Women's Shelter Gala, and continued to develop plans for the mentorship program. Through it all, she found herself marveling at the richness of her life, the supportive network of friends and colleagues she had built, the difference she was making in her community, the love she had found with Olivia. The day of her mother's wedding dawned bright and clear. As Maxine slipped into her bridesmaid dress, a flowing gown in a soft shade of lavender, she felt a sense of completion. This day represented not just her mother's new beginning, but her own as well. At the ceremony, Maxine stood proudly beside her mother, tears of joy streaming down her face as she watched the woman who had given her life embark on a new chapter of her own. As she looked out at the gathered friends and family, she saw not just acceptance, but celebration of love, of second chances, of the beauty of being true to oneself. Later, at the reception, Maxine found a quiet moment amidst the festivities. She stepped out onto a balcony, the sounds of laughter and music floating out from behind her. As she gazed up at the star-filled sky, she felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. 5 years ago, she had taken a leap of faith in herself, in the possibility of a better future. That leap had led her here, to a life fuller and more beautiful than she had ever dared to imagine. As she stood there, Maxine made a silent promise to herself to continue growing, to keep pushing boundaries, to never stop reaching for her dreams, and most importantly, to always extend a helping hand to others on their own journeys of self-discovery and transformation. Because she knew, better than most, the power of acceptance, of second chances, and of finally becoming the person you were always meant to be. As the night wore on, Maxine danced and laughed with her family, with Olivia, with friends old and new. She was no longer an outsider looking in, but an integral part of this tapestry of love and connection. And as she caught her reflection in a mirror, her eyes shining, her cheeks flushed with happiness, she saw not just Maxine, the successful business owner, or Maxine, the transgender woman, but simply Maxine, whole, complete, and finally, irrevocably herself. The wedding marked a turning point for Maxine, a celebration not just of her mother's love, but of her own journey. In the months that followed, she threw herself into her plans with renewed vigor. The 10th coffee stand location opened to great success, with Rachel, now a confident and skilled barista, proudly serving as its manager. The mentorship program Maxine had dreamed up with Emma became a reality, connecting aspiring women entrepreneurs with experienced business owners. Maxine found immense satisfaction in sharing her knowledge and experience, watching as women who had once felt powerless began to take control of their lives and careers. Her speech at the Women's Shelter Gala was met with a standing ovation. Maxine spoke from the heart about her own experiences, about the power of community and second chances. The event raised record funds, allowing the shelter to expand its services and help even more women in need. As her business continued to thrive, Maxine never lost sight of her commitment to creating an inclusive and supportive workplace. She implemented comprehensive diversity training for all employees, expanded health benefits to cover transition-related care, and established a scholarship fund for LGBTQ students pursuing careers in business. Her relationship with Olivia deepened, their love growing stronger with each passing day. They moved in together, creating a home filled with warmth, laughter, and the occasional chaos caused by Mr. Darcy's antics. Maxine found herself thinking more and more about the future, about marriage, about children, about building a family of her own. One fall evening, as they strolled through the park where they had first discussed their dreams for the future, Olivia surprised Maxine by dropping to one knee. With tears in her eyes and a ring in her hand, she asked Maxine to be her wife. Overwhelmed with joy, Maxine said yes without hesitation. As news of their engagement spread, Maxine was touched by the outpouring of love and support from her family, friends, and employees. She realized that she had created not just a successful business, but a true community, one that celebrated love in all its forms. Planning their wedding brought a new set of challenges and joys. Maxine and Olivia were determined to make their celebration not just about their love, but about inclusivity and acceptance. They chose LGBTQ-owned vendors, donated to charities supporting trans youth in lieu of wedding favors, and ensured that their ceremony was a true reflection of their values. On their wedding day, surrounded by loved ones, Maxine felt a sense of coming full circle. As she stood hand in hand with Olivia, exchanging vows and rings, she thought about the long journey that had brought her to this moment. Every struggle, every tear, every small victory had led her here, to a life filled with love, purpose, and authenticity. In her vows, Maxine spoke of second chances and new beginnings, of the transformative power of love and acceptance. She thanked Olivia for seeing her, truly seeing her, and for loving every part of who she was. As they sealed their union with a kiss, cheers and applause erupted from their guests, a joyous celebration of love conquering all. The reception was a jubilant affair with dancing, toasts, and an atmosphere of pure happiness. Maxine looked around at the faces of her guests, her mother and stepfather beaming with pride, Emma and the coffee stand staff whooping it up on the dance floor, Rachel slow dancing with her new girlfriend, friends from the women's shelter raising a toast in her honor. This, she realized, was what it meant to live authentically, to be surrounded by people who loved and accepted you for exactly who you are. As the night drew to a close, Maxine and Olivia slipped away from the festivities. They stood together on a moonlit terrace, overlooking the city that had been the backdrop to their love story. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Olivia asked, wrapping her arms around Maxine's waist. Maxine leaned back into her wife's embrace, a contented smile on her face. "Sometimes it still feels like a dream," she admitted. "But then I look at you, at everything we've built together, and I know it's real. We did it, Liv. We created the life we always wanted." Olivia pressed a soft kiss to Maxine's shoulder. "And this is just the beginning. Think of all the adventures we have ahead of us." As they stood there, basking in the glow of their love and the promise of their future together, Maxine felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. She had spent so many years fighting to be herself, fighting for acceptance, fighting to create a better world. And while she knew there would always be more battles to face, more progress to be made, in this moment she allowed herself to simply be. She was Maxine, entrepreneur, advocate, friend, daughter, and now wife. She was a woman who had faced her fears, embraced her truth, and in doing so, had opened doors for others to do the same. As she turned to kiss her wife under the starlit sky, Maxine silently renewed her commitment to live boldly, love fiercely, and always, always be true to herself. The years that followed were filled with both challenges and triumphs. Maxine and Olivia navigated the ups and downs of married life, learning to balance their careers with their relationship, supporting each other through difficult times, and celebrating each other's successes. Maxine's business continued to expand, not just in size, but in impact. She launched a line of ethically sourced coffee beans, with proceeds going to support women's cooperatives in coffee-growing regions. The mentorship program grew into a full-fledged nonprofit, providing resources and support to women and LGBTQ entrepreneurs across the country. 2 years into their marriage, Maxine and Olivia decided to start a family. The journey to parenthood was not without its difficulties. The complex process of choosing a donor, the emotional roller coaster of IVF treatments, the anxious wait to see if the pregnancy would take. But when Olivia finally held a positive pregnancy test in her hands, their joy knew no bounds. Pregnancy brought its own set of challenges, but Maxine was there every step of the way, attending every doctor's appointment, indulging Olivia's midnight cravings, painting the nursery in soothing shades of green and yellow. As Olivia's belly grew, so did their excitement and anticipation. The day their daughter was born was the most profound of Maxine's life. Holding the tiny, perfect being in her arms, she felt a love so fierce and protective it took her breath away. They named her Amelia, after Maxine's grandmother, who had always accepted her unconditionally. Motherhood opened up a whole new world for Maxine. She found herself in awe of Amelia's every milestone, her first smile, her first words, her first steps. Balancing the demands of her business with the needs of her family was a constant juggling act, but one that Maxine embraced wholeheartedly. As Amelia grew, Maxine and Olivia were committed to raising her in an environment of love, acceptance, and open-mindedness. They surrounded her with diverse books and toys, celebrated all kinds of families, and taught her the value of kindness and empathy. When Amelia was 3, Maxine and Olivia decided to expand their family once more. This time, they chose to adopt, wanting to provide a loving home to a child in need. After months of home studies, paperwork, and anxious waiting, they welcomed 4-year-old Zoe into their lives. Zoe, who had spent most of her young life in foster care, was initially wary and withdrawn. But with patience, love, and consistent support, she gradually began to blossom. Watching Zoe learn to trust, to play, to simply be a child was a joy that Maxine had never anticipated. As her daughters grew, Maxine found new purpose in her advocacy work. She became increasingly involved in organizations supporting trans youth and families, sharing her story and providing hope to parents who were unsure how to support their transgender children. She worked tirelessly to promote policies protecting LGBTQ rights, testifying before state legislatures, and using her platform to amplify marginalized voices. At home, Maxine and Olivia created a haven of love and acceptance. Their house was always filled with laughter, the sounds of Amelia's piano practice mingling with Zoe's animated storytelling. Family dinners were a nightly ritual, a time to connect and share the events of the day. Weekends were spent on family adventures, picnics in the park, visits to museums, volunteering at local charities. As Maxine approached her 45th birthday, she found herself reflecting on the incredible journey of the past 15 years. From a scared individual taking those first tentative steps towards living authentically, to a confident woman with a thriving business, a loving family, and a powerful voice in her community, the transformation was almost unbelievable. Yet Maxine knew that her story was just one among many. For every success she had achieved, there were countless others still struggling, still fighting for acceptance and equality. And so, she continued to push forward, to break down barriers, to create spaces where everyone could feel seen and valued. On the eve of her birthday, Maxine stood in her backyard, watching as Amelia and Zoe chased fireflies in the twilight. Olivia came up behind her, wrapping her in a warm embrace. "Happy almost birthday, love," Olivia murmured, pressing a kiss to Maxine's cheek. Maxine leaned into her wife's embrace, a contented smile on her face. "You know, if you had told me 15 years ago that this would be my life, that I'd have all this, I never would have believed it." Olivia squeezed her gently. "You've worked so hard for all of this, Maxine. You should be proud." "I am," Maxine said softly. "But I'm also grateful for you, for our girls, for every person who's been part of this journey. And I'm hopeful that the work we're doing, the lives we're living, are making it easier for others to be their true selves." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.